Hello colleagues, and welcome to Week 2, Unit 5 of SAP Cloud Platform Version Control with Git. In this unit, we will learn how to handle conflicts while rebasing. As we will see, this is a more complex topic than handling conflicts during three-way merging was. Before we think about how to manage rebase conflicts, let's dive a little deeper into how a rebase works. I said in the last lecture that in a rebase, Git picks up all the commits associated with one branch and puts them on the tip of another branch after moving them. It turns out that this is a little bit of a simplification. What Git does is to walk through each commit one at a time, compute the difference between it and the previous commit, and make that same change at the tip of the target branch based on that computation. It then moves on with the next commit, computing the change represented by that commit and adding that as a new commit at the end of the previous commit. So in this picture, that operation would happen 3 times in a row, one for each commit in the hotfix branch. Of course, the hotfix branch, if it had 20 commits in a row, that computation would happen 20 times. So what about conflicts? As you know, just with a three-way merge, a conflict happens when 2 different commits that Git is trying to make attempt to change the same line of code in different ways. In this case, since the rebase operation is applying changes to the end of the branch, one commit at a time, a conflict could potentially happen after any of the commits. So in this particular picture, you have 3 potential spots at which a conflict could occur. 1 potential conflict for each commit. Let's start by thinking of the easiest case of conflicts, where a conflict happens only on the 3rd commit. So this commit right here. Now, if a conflict only happens on this last commit, this situation is fairly easy. The first 2 commits will be automatically applied, and the user's not requested for any help at all. But then on the 3rd commit, the rebase will move into interactive rebase conflict resolution mode, and the user will be queried how they want to resolve the commit on that last one. We'll see in the next slide that resolving a conflict is somewhat different when you're rebasing as opposed to when you're performing a three-way merge. Okay, so that's what happens when you want to resolve a conflict on the last commit. But what if you need to resolve a conflict in the very first commit? Right here. Well, Git will notice the conflict right away, so on the very first commit, Git will move into interactive rebase conflict resolution mode, just as in the previous case, and you'll resolve the conflict and you'll tell Git to continue with the rebase. The only difference here is that because the conflict happened on the first commit, again, Git will then move on to the next commit. If the next commit has another conflict that needs to be resolved, Git will go into interactive conflict resolution mode again, giving you the same conflict resolution options as before. Now, if there's no conflict to be resolved, Git will move the rebase back into automatic mode, not requiring any human interaction. Now, one little warning here. It's my experience that Git is quite conservative on conflict resolution mode at this point. There have been times when I thought it was clear that there wasn't any conflict when Git asked me to manually resolve the situation. I think of this as Git being risk-averse, especially if there was already conflict earlier on. If there's any doubt, Git gets the user involved to make a decision. The only disadvantage to that risk aversion is that this can potentially result in having to manually resolve a lot of the stages in the rebase. So I've mentioned this mode, interactive rebase conflict resolution mode. What is it? Well, the conflict resolution in the file itself is nothing new. You're going to have pretty much the same notation as we saw before in conflict resolution mode for three-way merges. And just as with three-way merges, you can double-click the staging area and get a graphical representation of all the conflicts. But the options available to you are different. In a three-way merge, we basically had 2 main options. You could reset, which meant completely giving up on the three-way merge and starting over. And the second option, which was to resolve the conflict, stage it, and commit the conflict resolution. But here we have 4 main options. The first option is called skip patch. This will skip the individual commit and move on to the conflict resolution with the next commit. Note that if you choose skip patch, you will not lose the change associated with the commit. You'll just lose the commit itself. It essentially squashes a commit into multiple commits into a single commit. If you're in that scenario where you need to click through dozens of commits on the branch you're rebasing from because of an early conflict, this may actually be a really good option. It's a way you could simplify the process by hitting skip patch a few times and then doing conflict resolution in just a few bigger steps. The next option is abort. Abort says give up on the rebase and put things back where they were before. If you lose track of what you're doing in the middle of a long manual rebase, this is a nice fail-safe. Notice that this is basically the same thing that reset does in a three-way merge. The next option is continue. This is the standard option for conflict resolution, similar to resolving a conflict with three-way merging, with the difference that you may have to do it once for each commit after the first conflict. You resolve the conflict, save the conflict resolution, stage the file with the conflict resolution, and then hit continue. It'll put you back into interactive rebase conflict resolution for the next commit, or continue with the rebase automatically if there's no conflict, or just finish if it's the last commit. One more thing about this continue mode. If you're in the old Web IDE, the most common mistake is that people forget to stage the file. Now that mistake is not possible in the full stack Web IDE, but if you're using the old one, I thought I'd mention it. Finally, there's the reset option. This will give up on the rebase, similar to abort, but unlike the abort, this is kind of dangerous. It'll move the branch pointer that we were rebasing from directly to the branch pointer that you were rebasing to. You'll find out in the next unit that that's called a hard reset. If this sounds confusing, just know that it's very rare that this is what you want. To be honest, I've never seen a case where this is what a person wants. The worst thing about reset is that in the current version of Web IDE, you actually lose all the commits on the branch you're rebasing from. You'll lose all of your work on that branch you're rebasing from with no way to get it back. But unfortunately, it is an option that might be chosen by accident because reset does something different in a three-way merge conflict. Reset does what abort does here. It's a little confusing. In general, I would suggest that when you're doing a rebase, you avoid choosing reset while resolving conflicts. Enough talking about this. Let's actually do it. Okay, let's set up our demo first. We need to set up a non-trivial rebase, and we want there to be some conflicts on it. So let's create a new branch called special. Create a new local branch off of master. We'll call it special. Source branch master, branch name special. They're now pointing to the same thing. And we don't want these to be in sequence, so let's go back to master and let's make a few changes. Let's start by adding a first list item, or a fourth list item rather, from another guru of, I'm going to make a little more room here, from another guru of the open source world, Eric Raymond. Every good work of software starts by scratching a developer. I found that to be a useful truism in software development. So Eric Raymond. So we will stage this. First, let's make sure that it works, that I didn't do any typos here. Oh, doesn't like it for some reason. There we go. Here we go. Looks good. So we have that. So we will put Eric Raymond quote in this commit. Added Eric Raymond quote. Commit. And here's another one. Never tell me the odds. Han Solo. Make sure it works. There we go. Han Solo quote. That's enough commits on master. We've now added 2 commits to master. Let's go back to our newly created special branch. And let's start by going to our style sheet. And text align left. That looks good. We'll just make sure that first header is left text aligned, which is default, but we're making it explicit. So let's make sure that works. Works great. So the reason I'm doing a change here in the style sheet is because I want the first commit on the branch we're rebasing from to not result in a conflict. And if it's in a separate file, then it won't. It's going to pick up with conflict resolution with the second commit. So added left alignment to first header. Beautiful. Okay, now let's go back to this file and let's add another list item. Example, far outweighs precept. Thomas Jefferson. That is a principle I have done my best to implement in this course by providing lots of hands-on examples. Save. Run. Here we go. It works. So Thomas added Thomas Jefferson quote. Commit. Let's do a couple more commits with a couple more quotes. I love deadlines. I love the whooshing sound they make. They go by. Douglas Adams. Nice. Okay, got that quote in. Douglas Adams quote. Right. Let's do one more commit. A little deeper quote, a lot deeper quote. Mahatma Gandhi. Man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. A man is but the product. Okay, so follow along. If you've been following along with me, we added 2 commits in the master branch, and we've now added 4 commits to the special branch. The first of the special commits was to this style sheet, and then we added 3 quotes. And if we go back to the master branch, we'll see that we added 2 quotes there, 1 commit for each. Eric Raymond and Han Solo. So let's go to special. Let's first look at how this appears in the repository. Go here, this level, and we're going to show both branches. Here you have the master branch with these 2 quotes, and here you have the special branch. And we're going to rebase the special branch on top of the master branch. Now this first commit right here, this one was made in a separate file, so this will not result in a merge conflict. However, this Thomas Jefferson quote was done on the same line as this Eric Raymond quote. So we will expect the Thomas Jefferson quote to be the first thing that it triggers as a conflict. Let's find out if that is in fact the case. It will be. So let's go to rebase. We're going to rebase special onto master. Okay, we have a conflict just like we thought. Look at this. The first conflict is this Thomas Jefferson quote, exactly like we said. If you don't believe me, you can go to styles and you can see that here's this text alignment we put in before. So this change was automatically applied in the rebase. We're stuck on the next commit. Now, we could abort and start over. We're not going to do that. Instead, we could also stage the changes and hit continue. But I want to show you what skip patch does. Skip patch will skip over this commit, but it will not skip over the change represented by this commit. So there's a Thomas Jefferson quote here. And what it'll do, if we skip patch, it'll roll this change associated with the Thomas Jefferson quote into the next commit, which, as I recall, was a quote by Douglas Adams. So I'm just going to click skip patch. Yes. And it's going to squash those 2 commits into a single commit, into a single conflict. And here we go. The Douglas Adams quote commit is right here, and it includes now the Thomas Jefferson quote, exactly as we said. Now we could double click on this and get the graphical conflict resolution screen that we got before with the 3-way merge conflict, but instead I'm going to use this screen. This is the notation Git uses with text, and honestly I kind of prefer this, but most developers prefer the graphical display. I'm going to delete this marker that shows the conflict. I'm going to delete this marker, which shows the conflict. I'm going to delete this, and we're going to keep all 4 quotes. Now, in principle, the next quote is at the end of the list. It's Gandhi. So if we stage this, I'll stage it now. I've already saved it. And this continue button highlights. If we hit continue, in principle, what should happen is it should just automatically apply the next commit in the rebase because there shouldn't be a conflict. But as I told you, Git is conservative at this point. So it may, because it's an adjacent line, it may say, I'm not sure what to do, and it may require our intervention again. Let's find out how it behaves. We're out of rebase conflict interactive mode. So that means it figured out that this did not require our intervention. It was to the next line. And so we have this quote by Mahatma Gandhi that was automatically applied. So we only needed to intervene for 2 commits, and we chose to combine those 2 commits together. I want to show you something. Remember there were 4 commits in the rebase branch? In the branch that was rebased? Now, if you look at this, Han Solo was the last commit in the master branch. You see that because now special's been rebased on top of master. Let's go here. We want to see the whole repository for both branches. Okay, so here is our last commit that was on master, and you can see this because here, this one's only special. So we had 4 commits in our special branch, and we put it on top of the master branch. But it squashed those into just 2 commits, and into just 3 commits. Sorry, it squashed 4 commits into 3 commits. And the reason it did that is because we clicked skip patch. Okay? So this Douglas Adams quote contains both of these 2 quotes. This Douglas Adams commit, because we squashed them together during that rebase. Okay, that is an interactive rebase. At this point, you understand rebasing a little better. You understand what interactive rebase conflict resolution mode looks like, and you know what the 4 options in the mode are and what they mean. You know not to select reset. And most importantly, you can do a complex rebase conflict resolution. I now invite you to join me in the next unit, Unit 5, where we will learn what a reset is, what a hard reset is, and learn how and when to perform a hard reset.